Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the Magic Jank Podcast, the show where members of Team Magic Jank get together and we talk about the latest happenings in Magic the Gathering, as well as, just ramble nonsensically and from a very passionate perspective about Magic the Gathering. Let's call it what it is. And today, we've got a lot to talk about. My name is Graham. I go by Hamhawks42 on the interwebs, and I am joined by the one and only Astrals Flame. Astrals, how's it going, man?
It's going good. It's a bright and balmy 98 degrees coming in hot. I just had some tacos earlier today and the sun is shining. I can't complain.
Dude, that sounds like a great day. And
It was a pretty good day.
it's a pretty good day, and we need good days on Mondays from time to time, which is when we were recording this, and that is exactly what we got today. Because today, June 30th, 2025, was the scheduled BNR announcement that Wizards of the Coast releases. Now, the current plan is to release them once per year, barring crazy emergencies, and today was the big one. And so there's been a ton of scuttlebutt over the last couple of weeks over what's going to go, what's not going to go, what's going to happen, and Wizards of the Coast dropped a huge bombshell on us in the best way. And in Standard, so there were a number of formats discussed. The big hit, though, was on Standard. And 7 cards were banned out of Standard, which I was expecting like 1 or 2, hoping for 4 or 5, and they gave us 7. Holy cow. So, yeah, let's just go down the list and let's level set, and then we'll get into it, right? So we have Corey Steel Cutter is banned. Abuelo's Awakening is banned. Monstrous Rage, of course, is banned. Heartfire Hero is banned. Up the Beanstalk is banned. Hopeless Nightmare is banned. And This Town Ain't Big Enough is banned. So these hits are huge. Astrals, first impressions. What you got?
Well, I guess you could say this town really wasn't big enough.
Clearly not.
I am ecstatic. I am thrilled. I am so happy this happened. This is the bands we wanted months ago, but finally delivered. And honestly, I do think this was an appropriate time because the once a year banning fell well in line with the set release. We've seen the impact. We didn't see that many changes as we wanted, but I am thrilled. I am happy. They hit the nail on the marker. It's a whole new format, and it is beautiful. We're going to live past turn 3.
Yes! Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Absolutely. So I was going into this, I know Monstrous Rage is a card that has been in the crosshairs for a long time, and people have been complaining about it for a long time, and appropriately so. In the ban announcement, they actually cited that it is one of the strongest combat tricks ever printed, period. Like, there's no... You don't need to add a qualifier. It's not even just combat tricks in Standard. As far as just combat tricks go, 3 power and perma-trample on, it's just too strong for Standard effectively. And that's what they did by removing it here. They acknowledged, hey, it's overstayed its welcome. We know it's great. Let's get it out of here. And it's perfect. So now all of a sudden blocking is viable. It also... It disrupts the mono red deck as well as the Izzet Prowess deck and pretty much every red-based aggro deck. That card has been the thing. And so that is a piece that there's basically no reason not to run it if you're doing any kind of red aggression thing. Heck, even the Gruul Delirium packages, which has kind of been a tier 2 deck for a minute here, that all of a sudden even has to adjust to life without it, which... I don't see that as a problem. I think that's a very good thing, and I think the rest of the world is, the rest of the format is going to be viable now in a way that we haven't seen in a while because of that. But I know a lot of folks, myself included, have been saying that that wouldn't be enough to meaningfully change things because the Izzet Prowess deck is bonkers good. The mouse package is bonkers good. And so both of those decks, both of those approaches also got hit with Corey Steel and Heartfire Hero. So did you see the Corey Steel Cutter ban coming?
I did. I'll be honest, I was kind of in the camp. I would have been fine with it if it was still around. I do know that they cited that there are not many clean answers to Corey Steel. And of that, I do agree. Corey Steel is effectively 2 for 1. You have to remove the token and remove the Corey. Usually you're losing 2 pieces on this.
Yep.
The downside to it being the opponent has to play 2 spells. Sure. Personally, I think the card is strong. I don't think our standard format could warrant it in a way that answers it cleanly. So like I said, I think if answers existed better, it would
Yeah.
be fine to stick around. But I do agree that it's good to ban because the only clean answer you really had was temporary lockdown. And that's, a 4 of in a deck on a 3-turn enchantment. And that doesn't even get rid of it permanently because
Hmm.
they still play bounce cards. So
Yeah. Yeah, temporary lockdown has been kind of cited as one of the best answers to it. But another thing that we've seen to deal with Corey Steele are 1-drop interactions in main decks. Cards like Spell Pierce. I don't know about you, but I've seen like 4 of Duresses in a ton of lists right now.
oh,
And
ton, yeah.
I mean, if that's not the definition of format warping, I don't really know what is. Like those shouldn't be main deck cards. Those are sideboard pieces. Good sideboard pieces and very viable, but like 4 of main deck, that seems a bit odd. And so I think that is kind of a red flag, if you will. And so yeah, I kind of so I'm on the camp that it's definitely best that it's gone. I wasn't, but I didn't expect it. Because Tarkir Dragonstorm is not that old. This is a relatively new card. And
That's true.
so
8 weeks, yeah.
yeah, for cards this young to get hit, that's not common. That doesn't happen very often. I was of the impression that it would probably survive this ban, but not survive its natural rotation cycle. I was expecting it to eat a ban at some point, but I'm surprised that they kind of ripped the Band-Aid and just hit it now. I'm surprised and delighted that they did, because I think that it's going to result in a much cleaner standard format. And I love the way that they phrased it in the ban announcement. They did just say this card is too good for standard. Like, they didn't make any bones about it. They didn't beat around the bush. They just acknowledge this card's too strong, and it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it absolutely is. I will, like, echoing to your point there, I really did appreciate in the article, like, they did say the cards that were banned because the level of interaction did not exist in the format, and it was pushing the game in a direction that standard usually isn't in. Like, Heartfire Hero, blocking it is
Yeah.
punishing. Not blocking it is punishing. It doesn't matter what you do, it's
Right.
punishing. I did a fun fact actually. So we had 7 bannings today. I was curious in chatting with a friend of mine on the most amount of cards banned in a rotation cycle or at one time. And I think this comes into either being the second most amount of bannings or the third.
Ooh, I
The
have a
most
guess.
amount of I think the most amount of bannings was Mirrodin when there was
Yep.
8 bannings in a year.
Well, and 5 of those were the artifact lands.
Yes, they were. Yes.
So there was an entire cycle that needed to get banned.
Yes.
So that was kind of its own unique challenge. And so for us to have this many bans without an entire cycle in them, it says a lot. And so that's interesting, and you could look at it and go, well, wow, standard is completely messed up. Oh my goodness. But the challenge that I would argue to that is we're in unprecedented territory here. We've never had a standard that had cards in it that were 3 years old.
Never, yeah.
Never. That's brand new. We've never had a standard where there have been 6 sets released annually. And granted, like that cadence, we're in the middle of the first year of that, but still, that's new. So this is the biggest standard that has ever existed. Additionally, Wizards is trying to keep to an annual cadence. Like, they don't want to ban anything for another year. And they understand. And in order to plan for that, they've accepted that they need to make these hits and do it. So I think that's just a good thing. On the note of Corey Steele, I also find it really interesting that they basically just cited it's just too good. Yeah, and I love that. Meanwhile, later on in the article, when you look at Pioneer, so there were no changes to the Pioneer format, and they even cite that that Corey Steele has added an interesting element to the Phoenix lists, and basically they're saying we're not making any changes because we're happy with the way these powerful cards are impacting Pioneer.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So yeah, newer cards continue to make a splash in the format with the addition of Corey Steele Cutter to Izzet Phoenix lists being the latest change, accompanied by smaller changes like the adoption of Terra Magical Adept in Enigmatic Incarnation lists. So the one little paragraph, they cite 2 new cards as being played, and they like that.
And I did appreciate the mention of the Enigmatic Incarnation deck with Terra, because that is a very good interaction. Terra, being able to mill 5 cards, grab an enchantment, and put it back in your hand is just very nice. We've seen Terra a little bit in some of the unit packages that are playing the Naya build. So So it's very great to actually hear that she's seeing some play in Pioneer. Although there is one small correction we need to say rest in pepperonis for is Tybalt's Trickery. You
Oh
had
yes,
a slow-lived moment. You're banned once again in best of one.
crazy. Who knew? And I don't know about you, but when I read that, so yeah, Tybalt's Trickery is banned in what, Pioneer best of one.
Yeah.
Like, when I read that, I was like, that card's legal anywhere. Like what? Like
Yeah.
I feel like this thing should have been recalled for safety reasons a long time ago. Like,
Wait, you don't want like a turn 2 Ulamog or something in a gamble deck?
I will never forget the call time early access event. I was playing against Dean, fantastic
Yep.
streamer. I would say retired streamer is the way I like to put it. Because he hasn't been online in a while, but shout out to Dean. Great, love that dude. He mulliganed to 1 against me with a Tybalt's Trickery deck. Top deck the correct 2 cards. Next thing I know, I'm staring down a turn 2, I think Ugin and Coma Cosmos Serpent off of a Tybalt's Trickery into Genesis Wave. Like, mulligan to 1. And like, turn 2, that popped up. It was a beautiful clip. I'm not even mad, but like, this card's messed up and should never be legal anywhere. Period. I stand by it. It made an impression. Let me put it that way. So
It's a fair impression.
yeah, card's nuts. Card is actively nuts. So yeah, I'm all for. I think it might have been turn 3, but regardless, I'm all for that card never seeing the light of a day ever again. Anywhere. So yes, it is banned in Pioneer. Or Pioneer best of 1. It's still legal in best of 3 for some crazy reason, which is wild to me.
I guess because you can answer it better.
I guess. Yeah, and so we just jumped into Standard because that's the height of it. But in Alchemy, Core Steel Cutter is suspended pending a rebalance, so they're gonna possibly retool it and bring it back in Alchemy. Which, okay, cool. Make it cost 4 or something. Sure, whatever. That's just a theory, just an assumption. I don't know. And then in Historic, Counterspell is unbanned. So Counterspell, I believe, was preemptively banned when it was brought in with the Strixhaven Mystical
right?
Archive. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it was preemptively banned because a few of those just automatically hit the ban list. They're like, yeah, it's here, but you can only play it in Brawl.
Yeah, cards like Channel and whatnot. They were just like, nah, but we have them, but don't. And Counterspell was one of those. And I think Lightning Bolt was in that mix too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And there were a couple others. Like, I know Time Warp ultimately got banned out of Historic because it was kind of nuts but it had a couple months to kind of ruin the format before it got the axe. And yeah, Counterspell had been preemptively banned, and now they've kind of decided, like, well, yeah, with the speed of the format, it's probably fine. And so, which is something that actually with Counterspell specifically that happened in Modern not too long ago with Modern Horizons. So
yeah, because it was printed directly into Modern, whereas it was only in Legacy. Which is kind of surprising. Like if we look at Magic as a trend as of late, with how less so on the bannings, but Magic as a whole has gotten a lot faster.
Yep.
And
yeah, all of a sudden,
scary,
2 mana unrestricted answers don't seem quite as powerful as they used to.
No, they don't seem as scary. They just seem, happy. Give us Counterspell in Standard. Let's go.
Let's not. Mana leak in Standard, maybe we can talk. But like full on Counterspell, I don't know about that. Yeah.
All right, well, give me Thoughtseize back then. I'll take Thoughtseize back.
Oof. I'd rather not. Well, and actually, so that it's interesting that you mentioned that. That actually dovetails into back to Standard, because those are the non-standard changes, and we have barely scratched the surface on this. They did specifically call out 1 mana threats. And I thought that was very interesting. So the way that they put it here, with the larger card pool of 3-year Standard, we need to be more precise with our 1 mana cards and our cards that synergize with 1 mana cards. 3 of the cards banned today cost 1 mana, and Core Steel Cutter asks to be played alongside the cheapest cards available. The potential for 1 mana cards to define a format grows as the card pool increases, and we've learned that going to 3-year Standard is a larger step in that direction than we had first believed. Standard is more fun when the stars of the game often cost more than 1 or even 2 mana, and we will be taking steps to ensure that is true more often going forward. So I think that tells me Thoughtseize is not happening anytime soon. So I would not hold your breath on that.
Yeah, probably not. But I mean, it's nice to hear that they acknowledge that because, like, that's been
Hmm.
the biggest complaint I think for standard from a lot of us as of late. Maybe okay, maybe complaint isn't the right word, but voicing
Oh no, I've been
concerns, like when
complaining.
a format. Okay, well, all right, complaining or voicing of concerns, but either way, like when the format itself is warped and mapped around 1 and 2 drops, like there is a fundamental problem at that point in the game.
Hmm.
Like I'm not going to say that like a 4 mana or 5 mana card should dictate the fate of the game like we had in the standard with
No.
Domain and Shieldred being the end all be all if you didn't answer, was it? But the game should resolve around at least a couple late game cards and go beyond past a certain count and point.
Right?
So
Yeah, I want to get back to the days of complaining about Preacher of the Schism being too powerful. I
yeah,
want to get back to
yeah.
that, and I think we will. I think that and I like that. So they cited Corey Steel Cutter specifically, and the 1 mana cards that they're talking about are Monstrous Rage, Heartfire Hero, and Hopeless Nightmare. Interestingly enough, I would argue that This Town Ain't Big Enough, which is another one that hit the ban list, is also really powerful right now because of 1 mana spells. So you have not only the Hopeless Nightmare, which is hitting the ban list, but Storm Chaser's Talent and This Town Ain't Big Enough are like those two together are insanely powerful. And This Town Ain't Big Enough is getting banned to break up that package because it creates this inevitability and like a late game lockout that is incredibly frustrating to try to play against. And I know right now trying to brew any kind of control deck or any kind of mid-range deck, it just worked better if you put those two cards in it. Like that's been my experience anyway. And so I kind of like the idea of taking that down a peg. And so This Town Ain't Big Enough, I think, is also here because the 1 mana options to, play alongside it are so busted. Like that was the issue. So yeah, I would argue that, 5 of the cards are getting banned because the 1 mana cards are too strong. So
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely agreed. Like the impact of what the amount of value that the 1 mana cards are generating. Honestly, like if Monsters Rage, I'll say, if Monsters Rage had been reprinted, it either would have had to have cost 2 or 3 mana or not given trample
Mm-hmm.
and the +1/+1 token. That to me would have made this card balanced. If this was just +2/+0 until end of turn on a 1 mana card, sure, have at it. Or if it was like +1/+0 and trample,
Right.
just the one time effect. Okay, but like
Yeah. I feel like
too much, too much.
Yeah, it's just too much. I feel like the monster roll by itself as an instant for one would have
Oh, I'd be fine
probably
with that.
been reasonable and definitely captured the same flavor. You
Yeah.
know, but if you wanted to really get, because with Wilds of Eldraine, the roll tokens were kind of the big innovation, and so I can appreciate
Mhm.
wanting to like maintain that. I think the monster roll by itself is good enough. Like just a monster roll for one, like that still would have been fantastic, honestly. Yeah.
Agree.
So +2/+0 is bonkers. Yeah. So yeah, Monsters Rage. It's funny. I don't even think we need to talk too much about this because like Monsters Rage is just busted, and I feel like Monsters Rage and Manifold Mouse together created a DIY Embercleave that was like really difficult to deal with, and
Yeah, I actually did.
yeah, except it was swinging at you on turn 2, like that was yeah. With Embercleave, you normally had to wait till like turn 4 or 5 before it was really gonna bring like. Don't get me wrong. When the Embercleave resolved, and for folks who aren't familiar with Embercleave, it was a legendary artifact from Throne of Eldraine, OG Eldraine, that it cost 2 if you were attacking with 4 creatures. It costs 1 less for each attacking creature you control, and it enters the battlefield and the auto snaps onto one of your creatures, and it gives +1/+1 double strike and trample, which was the best combat trick in the game at the time and was a staple in the red aggressive packages of the day. Card was fantastic, never bad enough to see a ban, but like it was one of the cards that was busted enough that people were saying it probably, maybe it should have been banned before it rotated. It's in the discussion. It is what it is. Compared to everything else that was going on, compared to Oko, Thief of Crowns, and all that jazz, this
Yeah.
was okay, but it was a format defining card, Anyway, and this required you to have 4 attacking creatures in order for it to be 2 mana. And the Manifold Mouse Heartfire Hero action, just the bodies that you're bringing down, it was just insane.
You just needed one creature. Doesn't matter what.
Mm-hmm.
One creature. Here's trample. Here's double strike. Have at it.
Yeah.
Like I'll pitch a question though. Like of all the
Oh yeah.
cards on the ban list,
Hmm.
which I think the one, and let me know if you disagree with this, but I think the
Mm-hmm.
one that would be the most defining of them all to be banned, I actually think is Hopeless Nightmare.
Ooh.
And I say this from a standpoint because in the mono red package, that was very apparent, right?
Hmm.
You
Yes.
could see those cards having been banned.
Hmm.
But I think the one that people kind of thought that would be nice is Hopeless Nightmare. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't strike you as being powerful right away. But when you start to see its ability for
Hmm.
recursive loops, that's when this thing shines. Because that 2 life adds up.
Oh my goodness, it does. 100%. And I always thought this card was good, but I didn't realize how good it was until I saw it in
Mhm.
action in those pixie decks because it is a clean 1-for-1 with upside. This is strictly better than a shock to your opponent's face. It's 2 life loss and they have to discard a card. You win down a card, but have a piece of cardboard on the battlefield. Your opponent has to give up a card and they just give up a card and they get domed for 2. Like that exchange was always profitable. The moment you add the Pixies and the Kirans and the This Town Ain't Big Enoughs and all that jazz to the equation, and you're able to recur this thing, holy cow. We've seen what that deck can do. And I mean, the Pixie decks, the Orzhov Pixie decks or the Esper Pixie decks before it, I mean, their finishers were the Pixie itself, which was a 2/2 flyer for 1 and 2 damage off of this that just picks your hand apart. And when you have a Pixie deck that can recast one copy of Hopeless Nightmare 4 times in a game, not to mention any additional ones they draw, like your hand's going to be empty and your life total is just going to be disintegrating fairly quick, like quicker than you think it should. So I love this ban. I was surprised at this one, but I'm delighted that they hit it because I think it could be format defining in the absence of the Corey Steele and Monstrous Rage decks. So I
Definitely
think,
agreed.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. This is the one where I was like, man, it would be nice if, but they're never gonna. And then they went ahead and did it. Yeah.
And I just made all our dreams come true. And now it's
Oh,
a magical land of
mm.
joy and wonder and turn 4
And
and
turn
joy.
4. Yes, we have turn 4 again. I'm so excited. Oh, I love it. Well, and the other thing that was fun. So during my stream today, when this got announced, there was a litany over the following hours of folks popping in saying, "How does X deck not just take over the format?" And the thing is, there were 5 or 6 different decks mentioned in those
Mhm.
discussions. Like, how does Insidious Roots just not take over the format? How does Yuna not just take over the format? How does Vivi Spellslinger not just take over the format? And it's like, well, I can't help but notice you're all coming up with different theories. Like that seems good to me. Like I like this a lot. Let's all figure it out
Hmm.
together because those questions are what what we brewers can answer now. And I love that. Whatever you think is going to be the thing, try it. Go after it.
And it's almost like when questions like that are being asked, it makes you wonder, maybe we really are in a diverse standard meta.
It's crazy. We'll see what shakes out. I mean, because
Mhm.
there's very, very possibly something that is egregiously powerful that has yet to pop off. I mean, the other one, Abhorrent Oculus is one that
Yep.
like. Yeah, some people were saying that they unbanned Abhorrent Oculus today because all of a sudden this like
Oh,
with like a helping hands and whatnot, like all of a sudden that the Oculus shell looks pretty good. Look, because this deck didn't get touched, and it has been an underperforming deck that reads really good on paper for a long time.
mhm.
So all of a sudden, Abhorrent Oculus and Proseidetic Memory, like that package, can now step in and maybe become a thing. I don't know if that's going to be top tier or not, but that deck revolves around a lot of 3-drops. Well, 3-drops all of a sudden are worthy of consideration again in a way that they haven't been as of late. Um, I think a lot of people are also going to have to adjust their interaction packages now because these big crazy 3-drop threats are now back on the menu, and that's really exciting. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. It's funny, Oculus has the potential to be absolutely busted, but it's easy to interact with, especially in best of 3. Sideboarding in Grave Hate, all of a sudden this thing gets significantly worse. So yeah,
Oh, extremely. And I
yeah.
mean, like it just general remover overall. Like now I would say we don't have to necessarily run like, well, you're probably still going to run like cut downs and torch the towers. Like there are still some threats that we need to deal
Sure.
with in that range. But, you're not having to just immediately spend like a torch the tower or cut down on a turn 1 threat into a turn 2 threat and then still try to hold up something for the turn 3 threat. Now you can actually play in a meta and format. Okay, I can be conservative. I could let this, I don't know, 1-drop Monastery Swiftspear live. I can kill the whatever 2-drop. Or I guess, sorry, in the case of Oculus, it'd be, I can kill the 1/1 Marauder and then let the FOMO hit the battlefield
Right.
because the FOMO's not going to do anything if I take out the graveyard or I kill the Oculus. We
Right.
get to be more selective with our removal. I'll say it gives us it's
Yes.
dealer's choice on removal options
Yeah.
for
All of a
what you want to
sudden,
get rid of.
looking at a starting hand that has a go for the throat or get lost in it, you're like, okay, I'll probably be all right. Even going
Yeah.
blind in game 1. That's really exciting. Yeah, I love that. So I have a question for you about one of the
Mhm.
bans. So we're talking about the need to run these 1-drop removal pieces. Like the stock on cards like Cut Down and Torch the Tower is all of a sudden, it's not as high as it used to be. Well, like immediately. Also, apparently the market price on Corey Steelcutter like halved the moment the release dropped. So, if you've been meaning to sell those, I'm sorry. Tough luck on that, I guess. But Heartfire Hero. Let's talk about this one specifically for a minute. This is the mouse for 1 that has the Valiant trigger that you put a counter on it every time you target it, and when it dies, it auto flings. So this is one where I was surprised to see this on the ban list. Not mad, but surprised. So I was definitely of the impression that the mouse package needed to get hit somewhere. And I personally wanted to see Manifold Mouse go. I'm of the impression that Double Strike is a keyword that needs to be expensive. I think Double Strike on a 2-drop and repeatable Double Strike at that, even when it's only on the attack for 2, felt too powerful for me. Now, it would appear that Wizards' primary concern with that was the fact that it had Heartfire Hero as the 1-drop to target. Because notably, Manifold Mouse can only give Double Strike to a mouse. You can't give it to Monastery Swiftspear. And so all of a sudden, like the primary 1-drop is now out of the format, as is the trample trick. So that becomes Manifold Mouse's value becomes significantly clunkier, and trying to actually get it to line up becomes much harder now that the main 3 mouse cards being Heartfire Hero, Manifold Mouse, and Emberheart Challenger. Emberheart Challenger and Manifold Mouse are both 2-drops. And so that curve just got super weird. And I've had a couple hours to think about this, and I got to be honest, it's growing on me. I think this was the correct ban now, but at the moment I had a moment of like, really? Not Manifold? Okay. But what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on how they address the mouse package?
So in terms of the mouse package, I do actually think, Heartfire Hero was the absolute right ban. I would have been fine if Manifold Mouse or Heartfire Hero had been banned.
Mm-hmm.
But if we look at how the other two synergize, or just in general, how Manifold Mouse synergizes, right? Like you said, Manifold Mouse only can hit another mouse. If you had a turn 1 mouse and then jam the Manifold Mouse, it had value on the upside already. If you went into turn 3 with something and Manifold Mouse is still alive, you could target itself. And if you had a combat trick, that'd be fine. But it always either needed to hit itself or another target. So having a 1-drop into Manifold Mouse gave you the immediate value. Now you're a turn delayed in doing that. Whereas if I just had a turn 1 Heartfire Hero, turn 2 did just a Monstrous Rage into, I don't know, Wild Ride or something.
Right.
Manifold, like the Heartfire Hero got to keep its +1/+1, still got to keep the token, and was still attacking in for damage.
Right.
So Heartfire Hero had stronger synergies in the card package versus the Manifold Mouse that needed to target something else. No doubt Manifold Mouse is still a strong card. The red decks may still run it because it does give itself double strike. But like you said, the deck's now clunkier. But I think Heartfire Hero absolutely was the right ban because 1-drop, as soon as a 1-drop threat comes down, that sets the pace of the game.
Absolutely.
The first play of the game starts dictating when things are going to happen. And especially in an aggro deck, if your first card you're seeing is a Heartfire Hero, you know damage is coming, and it will not be small.
100%. Well, and of note, now the only one-drop mice that can take advantage of the Manifold Mouse trigger are all non-red. So if you did want to make a mouse deck, you now have to add white for something like Flowerfoot Swordmaster, which is a 1/2 for 1 that whenever it becomes the target, it has the Valiant trigger, mice you control get +1/+0. Still a strong card, but having to juggle 2 colors now makes that deck significantly worse. There's also Cheeky House Mouse from Wild of Eldraine, which I don't know if you guys remember Cheeky House Mouse. That was fun. Bravekin Duo is another option, but that's nowhere near as good as any of these other things we're talking about. And also, I was just doing a quick Scryfall search. Stampeding Scurryfoot from Aether Drift is a 1-drop mouse if you wanted to go green. So
it is.
That's cute. But these options, now all of a sudden, this is sounding like a pet deck janky brew and not a meta-defining busted piece of nonsense, which is great. If you can make Boros mice with Flowerfoot Swordmaster and Manifold Mouse work, good on you. Get after it. That's awesome. And then you can run Boros Charm in that deck, Lightning Strike, and then all of a sudden we're having a much more interesting... That deck could still be very strong. The Boros mouse package could still be quite good. But probably nowhere near as oppressive as anything we've seen lately from the mono-red version.
Jeez, yeah. I hope not. We don't need more. Okay, the game's over on turn 3. We need to breathe. We need to get turn 6, turn 7.
Yes.
We need to play our Breach the Multiverses again.
Yeah, we do. I want to get to a point where Reenact the Crime on turn 3 is not too slow anymore. That's anyway.
Speaking of Reenact the Crime, though, it's funny. Leading into that, Abuela's Awakening, right? Because I don't think we really touched on that one. Because that actually caught me off by surprise.
Agreed.
I thought if anything from the Omniscience deck was going to get hit, and I didn't actually think they were going to touch anything from it, I'll be honest. But if they were, I thought they would have probably just hit Omniscience.
Same. That was exactly what I thought as well. And this is the one on the list where even after some time to think about, I don't agree with this. And the reason that I don't agree with this ban is not that the Omniscience deck was fair and safe. I do think
it was not safe.
It was nuts. I mean, it's turn 4 win on the spot combo. Strong combo decks existing in the format is fine. Strong combo decks dominating the format is an unpleasant experience. So I do believe that the Omniscience deck, as interesting as it was, and I appreciate that it could combat these insane red decks, and so that was interesting, and it created the closest thing we had to a rock, paper, scissors. But given that the red decks got hit so hard, I do believe the Omniscience deck did need to get hit, and because otherwise the risk was that it would become the thing. And Abuela's Awakening is a bad card. I'm just going to say it what it is. The Abuela's Awakening is a very weak card. I understand that it is a key part of that deck, but in a vacuum, this has been legal and standard for 2 years. Before Foundations got printed, this was garbage. I definitely tried using this to bring back Portal to Phyrexia, which is an insane card. But the truth is, the fact that it reanimates the enchantment or artifact as a creature, which is just a 1/1 if X equals 0, bringing it back as a creature is a phenomenal downside and makes it incredibly interactable. So the chances of being able to pull something that is going to define the game, even what is it, one with the multiverse, the Omniscience at Home, that with Abuela's Awakening was pretty lousy. It just wasn't anywhere near enough to get you there because you could only free cast one thing per turn off of it. So even that on turn 4 wasn't good enough if you didn't have insurance behind it. And so I'm of the impression, I love reanimator strategies. I love cheating stuff into play. This is the worst way to do it. I understand it does cost 4, which is very, very cheap. If it was anything but Omniscience, this card wouldn't be a discussion. It's just Omniscience is the problem. And I fully believe that now people are going to set their sights back on Squirming Emergence or Repair and Recharge, or in the announcement they said reenacting or being able to reanimate permanents like Omniscience for 4 is a problem, but Reenact the Crime, I love that you use that as the jumping off point. This is a 4-drop that can reanimate Omniscience if you time it correctly, and Squirming Emergence is a literal 3-drop. You have to jump through some hoops and the deck needs to be dialed in to make it work. But as long as Squirming Emergence is around, and this will not be rotating until 2027, the January 2027 rotation, as long as Squirming Emergence is around, they can't reprint like heavy mill cards. Like if we had like a Glimpse the Unthinkable, all of a sudden Squirming Emergence is easily reanimating Omniscience on turn 3. Easily. Like it's not even it's not difficult at all. So
so Squirming Emergence I think is going to be definitely one of the ways people are going to still try to make Omniscience work, but I'll be honest, like so the Omniscient shell that we know for Azorius right now, right?
Yeah.
Picture this. So instead of Moment of Truth, you cut Moment of Truth, you put in Collector's Vault. Instead of Abuela's Awakening, you put in Reenact the Crime.
Done.
I've subbed out 8 cards. I now have a way to discard the Omniscience. I get a treasure token on top of that, which filters my mana. I'll have enough to do this on turn 4 or 5 still. And in better part, Reenact the Crime produces it back as an enchantment, which is going to be even harder to interact with because a lot of the time we were using creature removal to get rid of the first instance of the Omniscience from Abuela's. So
it's a minimal change, and the deck looks very similar. Yeah.
Entirely. Like
it's kind of shocking.
I guess
but you're not wrong.
Maybe I do this week, man. I'll just
go for it.
That'll be one of the decks. I'll just sub out those 8 cards and suddenly Omniscience is back. This is crazy.
Omniscience never left, baby. Yeah. So, and the thing is, that doesn't sound crazy at all. And I did the Breach the Multiverse combo with Reenact the Crime. That deck is shockingly like consistent. It's not really, if you time your Collector's Vaults correctly, it's not difficult. And a good mulligan is all it takes. And if you can get the vault going, I think people would be surprised at how consistent that could be, potentially.
Oh, definitely.
So, yeah. So I do suspect, and we still have cards like Stock Up that can just make it very simple and very straightforward to find that stuff. Yeah, and none of the cards you just mentioned are rotating with Edge of Eternities. So, yay.
Yep, true.
Yeah, and so I do believe that Omniscience is the problem. Abuela's Awakening is very much, I mean, we've seen this time and time again, right? Where a card gets banned and then a couple months later they are, okay, like, you're right, Bridge from Below wasn't the issue, it was Hogak all along. It's like, yeah, we know, we knew it was. Can we, like, we've seen that happen a number of times, and I suspect that's what this is. I think Abuela's Awakening is, to use the cliche, dying for Omniscience's sins. And it'll be back. It's just a question of how and when. Omniscience is like Dracula. You can stake it as many times as you want, but like it just comes back. It's just how it works.
It'll just keep coming back. There's always some way, somehow, somewhere. You heard it here on this podcast. We've already told you what the deck is going to be tier 1. Collector's Vaults and Reenact the Crime. So,
and that's the move, by the way. I love, as a creator, it's very easy to say Omniscience is the real problem, not Abuelos. I love the fact that you're just like, all right, bet, let's do this, and you're just gonna build it. Like, I'm gonna show you guys that this is still great. Yeah.
And I mean, that's it right there. Like,
I love it. Let's prove the point. Yeah, I'll probably tinker with that too, honestly, because that sounds like, yeah, that sounds legit. Yeah. So yeah, the Abuela's Awakening ban, I think, was one that was very interesting. And it sounds like we're in agreement, and I think time is gonna tell. But Smart money is on Omniscience not surviving its natural rotation cycle, I think.
Yeah, no, I don't see it making it 5 years. I'll be generous. I could see it maybe getting another year, because with having to use like Reenact the Crime and Collector's Vault, it does push it back like by 1 turn.
It's a little less
gives
consistent.
More answers. Yeah. But I mean, even that still, I'd give it another year, because even a turn 5 combo, when we're not drawing to mono red on turn 3,
right? Turn
5 is still pretty viable. And mono red, and like if you run into like mono red as Omniscience combo, right? Their creature, their removal is not going to be able to hit Omniscience. They don't have enchantment removal, so
right.
What's the problem?
Now, that said, to also another point that I've seen brought up that is really interesting about Abuela's Awakening still potentially being very strong if it was around, which I think you'll appreciate this. Dracogenesis is still a thing. So Abuela's Awakening could have, kind of to play devil's advocate on this, Abuela's Awakening could still have brought back Dracogenesis, which would have allowed for the Marang River loops that the deck is often using right now in order to win the game. Now, that said, you can't drop a second Dracogenesis off of your Dracogenesis to protect it the way you can with Omniscience. So I suspect that deck would still be significantly worse, but the play pattern could potentially persist. So
Could definitely be.
That's an interesting thought, I think, and a fun kind of thought.
Now, what we could do is
Ooh,
if we swap the deck around and we cut the Omniscience for the Dracogenesis, we can reenact the crime, the Dracogenesis, and then still do our Marion River region loops. Bam, broke the meta, done.
Got it, nailed it. In the books, count it. You heard it here first, folks. So another brand that we haven't touched on in depth yet that I think is worth discussion, Up the Beanstalk, or as I've heard it referred to, Up the BS. How do we feel about this thing?
Should have been banned 6 months ago.
Agreed. All right. So it is so funny how right now Up the Beanstalk is not seeing play in really any of the meta decks, or it wasn't at the time of the banning, or not consistently. I think this card has always been like oppressively strong, and it has been meta defining for as long as it has existed. And yeah, in the write up, which by the way, if I haven't made it clear yet, go read the ban and restrict announcement, like in totality. If you want to get more detail on this, it was beautifully written, and the details give me so much hope. Jadine Klomparens, I'm sure I mispronounced that. I'm sorry, Jadine. You're amazing. I appreciate your work. Did a beautiful write up and explained everything to the point where I don't know, it's probably like 1,500, 2,000 words, and I feel it's pretty hefty. And I feel I was left, after reading the whole thing on stream today, I was left with a level of confidence that I haven't felt in some time towards Standard. Mm-hmm. It seems to be in good hands, and that's really nice to be able to say. But yeah, so Up the Beanstalk, this thing, the way that Jadine cited it, or the way that they pointed it out, was that it's been figured out, it's been solved, and any kind of cost reduction becomes problematic with this thing. And cost reduction cards exist. They're just going to continue to exist. So Up the Beanstalk has effectively overstayed its welcome. And I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So
hands down.
Yeah. So there are a number of this one I think hit me the hardest as far as all the bans go. And that's because I don't like playing the Red Rush decks, and I want to have card advantage into the late game. Therefore, I play Up the Beanstalk. And that is exactly why it needed to be banned, because it is literally that simple. Like, if you want to be able to draw cards deep into the game, this is the best way to do it, period. And so that being so consistent was just a problem. It's really, yeah. And it's almost impossible to interact with favorably because you draw a card when it enters. So
yeah, like no matter what, you're coming ahead. If Beanstalk has come down, you've at least gotten a card out of it, and it's replaced itself. It's done its job. Like that in enough. And I did read the article, and I absolutely agree. Like how it was cited was, it's been solved. It's been done. People know you play cost reduction things. We've seen it with the Overlords, everything else, Leyline Binding and everything. Mm-hmm. It does its thing. I 100% am so happy that this was banned and gone and done, because with Mono Red, and is it now going to probably a tier 2 type of list, Beanstalk list just would have been prevalent. This would have been the next thing. And now we don't worry about it. And it just, I'm happy. This was great.
I feel like we've watched the Up the Beanstalk domain deck evolve, since over the last 2 years or so, since Wild of Eldraine got printed, because it has been a thing this entire time with Leyline. I mean, Leyline Binding, I think, was kind of the canary in the coal mine, right? That was the one where we saw that interaction and realized, like, oh, this is great. Like, this is kind of an insane interaction. We've seen a million different applications of it. So, so like, at the very least, there was going to be a risk of like the Zur Overlord package being the thing again for a month before Zur rotates out. And then Yuna was going to step in and take that place. And so while a value Yuna enchantment deck running cards like Dredger's Insight in place of Up the Beanstalk could still be very possible, it's more narrow. And I think that's a good thing. It's more specific. You have to pick cards that synergize less powerfully and more specifically. And I think that's a great thing. I think it's going to lead to deck diversity. Now, Up the Beanstalk did allow for some very creative decks, right? We have seen some very interesting Up the Beanstalk builds over the years. But it really, like the Tolarian Terror decks, the Simic Terror decks are the first things that comes to mind, right?
Yeah, the Flash with the crab.
Yeah,
No.
with Eddie Merc Crab and all that nonsense. That deck doesn't exist and doesn't work ever for any amount of time without Up the Beanstalk. It was literally just abusing how powerful Up the Beanstalk was with a bunch of cards that, frankly, like, Tolarian Terror's fine on its own. But, like, it's just fine. It's not great. It's just when you can consistently throw 4 of them down because you drew your whole freaking deck, like,
Yeah.
and they all cost 1. Like, that's where that deck popped off and was able to be so busted. The moment you don't draw 30 cards off of your 2-drop, all of a sudden that's going to be a lot harder to make happen. That's a slight exaggeration, but only slight. If you've ever seen those decks in action, you know what I'm talking about. And the self-mill graveyard package with cards like Agonizing Remorse and the Hallowed Marauder is another one that is interesting and cool. Like, it was interesting to see that step in. Not Agonizing Remorse. What's the one I'm thinking of?
It's the 7 mana costs a card, 1 less for every card in your graveyard, right?
Yes.
And it's a 4/2 flyer.
Well, there's that one. I was saying there's a it doesn't matter. There's a removal spell that is that's in there too.
Gosh, yeah. It's like 4 and a black. It exiles 1 less for every card in your graveyard.
That's the one. Yep. I don't recall what it. So feel free. I'm sorry for everybody out here shouting at their phones as they're listening to this. I apologize. Sound off in the comments about how much of an idiot I am for not being able to remember that. So for the folks on the video feed, I'm going to put up Hollow Marauder as the example, because Hollow Marauder is a great example of a card that is good and powerful in the right kind of a shell, and just becomes just a little too much the moment you can draw a card off it, and it's still only a 1-drop. But by itself, it's fine. And if you've jumped through the hoop of milling a ton of creatures in order to reduce the cost, a 4/2 flyer for 1, and that has an opponent discard a card, and you could potentially draw off of it based on what got discarded. Like, that's already a perfectly fine and reasonable card in and of itself. You don't need to also draw a card off it. You just don't. So yeah, I think Up the Beanstalk, the formatting, the templating on Up the Beanstalk appears to have been like, I don't think this served its function. It reads like it's meant to be a utility uncommon for the Simic archetype in Wilds of Eldraine Draft.
Mm-hmm.
And it would accomplish that if it was whenever you cast a spell, if you spent 5 or more mana to cast it, you draw a card.
Yeah.
That would have been fine, and I think that was the intent with this. And you'll notice, actually, Final Fantasy has a whole bunch of cards in it that do care about the amount of mana spent, and you have the raccoons from Bloomborough with Expend that care about the amount of mana spent to cast spells. I think they've learned this lesson. Keying off of mana value is not getting you where you want to go. And we're seeing less and less of that. And so now all of a sudden, keying off of the amount of mana spent on something, it also allows kicker costs to be counted. It allows like tiered and spree to be counted. So I think that's a good thing all in all, because funnily enough, Up the Beanstalk went both ways. It triggered off of all those crazy cost reduction things. But if you casted a fully loaded Smuggler Surprise, you didn't draw off Up the Beanstalk. It's a weird double standard.
It was always awkward because, like, I remember seeing when Smuggler Surprise came out, like, you'd play some of the first few decks had Beanstalk in it, and it was like, oh wow, I've got this fully loaded. I'm gonna cheat 2 creatures in. I'm gonna give them hexproof. Where's my card?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was just funny how that works. But also, can we appreciate the fact that Smuggler Surprise all of a sudden not a crazy build around anymore? It's definitely worth revisiting now. And I know it's one that's near and dear to your heart. So yeah, and mine too, if I'm honest. I freaking love it.
I'll be honest, I already have a new brew. It's 15 and 10. Got myself some Fenrir's in there. I won't stay on the deck list too long because I know it's not part of the ban list, but I subbed in some new summons. So there's Summon Fenrir. I've got in Summon Bahamut, and then in the sideboard, I stuck in the Giant Turtle. Just for some lulls against the aggro deck, which I guess maybe I don't need anymore because mono red's not going to be like it was.
It's going to be maybe a little more awkward. Yeah, the Ancient Adamantoise.
Yeah.
It's so silly. I love it.
Just stuck it in the sideboard. Cheating 2 turtles. Suddenly I've got plus 40 life. What you going to do?
Amazing. Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's just silly fun. I love it. Well, and so at the end of the day, I feel like these bands hit pretty much all of the decks that we expected
Yep,
would
definitely.
become the players, in the future meta, right?
I think definitely like everything from what could have been a replacement aggro list to I'll call a combo deck taking over the format to a recursive tempo discard based deck and an irritive value engine in
Mm-hmm.
mid range. Like they touched everything that would have been a potential contender that would have warped the format. And now we're back to the Thunder Junction where everything's open and wild again.
Yeah. So we talked about Smuggler's Surprise. I mean, the next logical question is, what other brews are you looking forward to going after?
I mean, Smuggler's Surprise for sure.
Yeah.
Yuna's on my radar actually. I've been kind of liking playing
Yes.
with Yuna a lot. I'm very curious to try a package with Yuna and Terra in the Naya build. I don't mind the Abzan brew of Yuna, like
Mm-hmm.
with Bailmerk and everything, but I'm really intrigued by utilizing Yuna with Terra and making the copies of the non-legendary enchantments. That
Yes.
to me seems very strong and powerful. So I'm a big fan of wanting to explore that type of area.
I've done a little bit with that, and it's amazing. Um,
Okay.
the cards that I have found that overperform like crazy in that is Overlord of the Boiler Bilges, because Overlord of the Boiler
Hmm.
Bilges with lifelink off of Yuna is bonkers.
Oh,
And
that's true. Yeah.
the other one that I've used with that is Summon Brynhildr, because that can give your Overlord of the Boiler Bilges haste. If
Oh, that's
depending on
disgusting.
how it stacks out. And so I've definitely had a hasty lifelinking Overlord, and Terra was in that list to make copies of it. That like it's the
Oh, that's
potential top end like power of that is like bonkers nuts. So run that down. Let's keep tinkering because I think there's something there.
I think
And
you're absolutely
that
right.
was represented at the Pro Tour. There were people trying to make that work in the Pro Tour that were also using Joshua, the 3-drop
Yep.
that could help you discard and whatnot. Like, which I that card got me helped me establish a 3-0 at my pre-release. So I was a fan of that
Ooh.
guy for a minute here. So I think that's delightful. And so yeah, I do believe that some kind of Naya package with Yuna has the potential to be really excellent. That said, I think a lot of builds that have used that in the past, whether it's the Abzan build or the Naya build, were running up the beanstalk. And so without that, you're gonna have to find other alternatives. But I think that doesn't hit the up the beanstalk doesn't hit that deck all that hard. Additionally,
No.
you now don't have to run like Overlord of the Hauntwoods if you don't want to, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's nice. I think it'll be all right. Yeah.
Oh, it definitely is. Like honestly, I think in place of Beanstalk in certain lists, you actually end up playing the 2 mana sorcery. It's the Esper Origins, I think it's called. You surveil
Oh
2 and
yeah.
gain 2 life. I actually think that this gets to see play. Yeah, Esper Origins.
Mm-hmm.
I have fallen in love with this card. I didn't realize how much I was going to love this, and more the fact it's Final Fantasy VI, right? That we were talking about earlier.
Let's go.
Um,
Yes.
but like being able to surveil 2, gaining 2 life, and then getting to do that again is setting up your draws. You can put what you need in the graveyard. But the flip side of Esper Origins as a turn 4 play is not terrible because it's a 4/4, it's a card draw, and then it ramps you. So
Mm-hmm.
I actually stuck this in Smuggler's Surprise
Let's go.
because it ramps, you draw the permanent card in your hand, and it just like sets you up for trample, right? With that trigger on the stack, you can just cheat a hasty creature in.
That's pretty fantastic. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And if you're wondering, for anybody out there who's like, wait, that green card, why is that green card called Esper? Play Final Fantasy VI, and then you will not only understand why it's called Esper, but you'll also understand why streamers like me refer to summon Esper Maduin as Daddy. All right.
Mhm.
Anyway, play that game. It's great. If you haven't. All right. Dude, that's a good shout though. Like this looks really good all of a sudden. Um yeah, I'm here for it. Yeah, I think that's excellent. And it's just freaking good, man. It's just freaking good.
Yeah,
Oh, I love it.
it's value, man. That's the name of the game. We're value the gathering.
Value. That's what we're all about, baby. I love it. So, so are there any other brews that you're intrigued by? Because
Um,
I know if I could, Insidious Roots is one that I'm looking forward to going back and tinkering with.
Yeah. I think Roots definitely there's what's going to be exciting is that there's going to be so many different ways to build up Roots now too. Between like you have the traditional Golgari way, you have a Jund way that you could do with Voldaren, Thrillseeker, and Terra.
Yep.
To try to mill into your Roots and grab it back to your hand. Even I think there's a potential for maybe like we've played it before, the loot root soup where you stick a loot in the cauldron and all your roots do the thing.
Well, and then if you're doing Cauldron, you could also throw Vivi in there to get really stupid.
Exactly.
Like, there's all kinds of options there. Yeah, absolutely. So sure, why not? Like, the opportunity for insane combos there is real. The one thing about this, I know my favorite variant of Roots was a combo deck that was leveraging the Thrillseeker and Tyvar with the Osteomancer Adept. Now, notably, Tyvar and Thrillseeker are both going to be rotating when Edge of Eternities comes out in August. So we have a month of that classic Roots combo deck before it rotates. So if you're looking for, upcoming, RCQ decks, that's not going to be one I would recommend. That said, some kind of other Roots package, probably leveraging Agatha's Soul Cauldron, like, could easily still be a thing. And so that's definitely a thread that I'm looking forward to chasing down and seeing what we can do. Oh, also Haywire Might's going to be leaving too.
Yeah, no more Might. You're going to be sad. That's like your favorite.
I know. Haywire. I rip Haywire Might. I love that thing. Yeah. Haywire Might and Roots was so good. Anyway.
It was amazing.
Yeah, big fan. So, anyway, some kind of Insidious Roots package is for sure going to be on my list of things to figure out. Yeah. The other one that I absolutely love, that I cannot shut up about, that has been one of my ladder decks for a while, is Merfolk. Did you guys know that Merfolk are legal in Standard right now and are like really good? Like nobody's playing them, but they're shockingly strong.
It turns out Lifecraft Engine is a really good card with Deep-Root Pilgrimage, isn't it?
Deep-Root Pilgrimage and Lifecraft Engine is so good. I've been thoroughly enjoying it and shocking people with how strong it is. Now, this is another one where enjoy it while it lasts, because there is one card in this package that is rotating with Edge of Eternities. That is a big deal, and that is the Vidalian Hexcatcher. That leaving really hurts. This Lord is critical, at least to the current build of Merfolk that I have, and I'm curious what's going to happen once it leaves. I have a feeling it's going to become the deck as a whole is going to become significantly weaker, but we still have Brandborn Cutthroat. We still have the Flood Pits Drowner. Like, maybe we pivot into more of a Simic build that has some of the other green ones, and then maybe like summon Leviathan as a top end. Like, I don't know. And like Nikonzel, the current conductor, maybe get that in there. I know the version that I'm running right now is like a mono blue tempo, and that clearly is not going to work the moment Hexcatcher leaves. Hexcatcher is a critical element of that. But Deep-Root Pilgrimage and Lifecraft Engine, oh my goodness, that situation is bonkers. I cannot recommend it enough. Yeah. So
agreed.
It's just fun.
It's going to be exciting. There's going to be a lot of new brews I think we're about to see in the next couple weeks, and even more so in 4 weeks, because like it still just baffles my mind that Edge of Eternities is 4 weeks away. But that's a discussion for another day.
Final Fantasy just got here. I feel like Tarkir Dragonstorm just got here, and now we're and now we're gonna be we're gonna be on the edge. We're living on the edge.
Yeah. You'll probably laugh at this. So I was like, okay, I was thinking to myself the other day, all right, 4 weeks till Edge of Eternities. I mean, that's I think that's fast. And I was thinking to myself, but it's going to be nice when Edge of Eternities is out. When's the next set? The next set's Avatar. It's not going to be till November. And then I remembered, wait a minute. No, it's not. There's a set in September.
There's the Spider-Man set in September.
Yeah, yep. I completely forgot about this set. I was like, I've got 3 months to finally enjoy a set. Wait, no, never mind. It's 6 weeks. Never mind. I take it back.
Yeah, well, and on that end, I mean, I don't actually, come to think of it, things have been moving so fast and furiously. We have not discussed the Edge of Eternities previews, like the first look from MagicCon Las Vegas, on this podcast yet.
Nope.
So I don't know that we necessarily need to go into a ton of detail, but actually I think it's kind of fitting that we're talking about how Standard is going to be going through these dramatic changes with the BNR. We've also seen some pretty insane, very powerful cards from Edge of Eternity so far. So 5 of the Shocklands are going to be arriving with Edge of Eternities. And it's a mix of the allied shocks and the enemy shocks. So, I pulled Watery Grave, up on the screen, but additionally, we're going to be getting Stomping Grounds, Sacred Foundry, Godless Shrine, and Breeding Pool, which is an interesting mix. So, yeah, I think Mardu and Esper are going to be in decent shapes. Regardless.
I think, yeah.
How do we feel about the shocks coming in?
I'm excited. I think we were a little bit worried about our mana bases being sort of punished come rotation.
Yeah.
Like we would still have our Surveil lands, but we are losing Pain lands. We're losing half the fast lands. We do have the Verges. They're great. But I'm excited that these are coming back. I do actually think that these are the type of reprint I'd like to see come once every other standard 3-year rotation.
Yeah.
So 3 years in, 3 years off, 3 years in, 3 years off kind of thing. Or 3 years you get 5 of the shocks, the next 3 years you get the other 5 shocks or something. Because fundamentally these are very strong, these are very good, but they are balanced because you pay the 2 life. And they just synergize so well.
Oh my goodness. And them coexisting at the same time as the Verges is pretty amazing, because right now the Surveil lands are the best way to consistently turn on your Verges, but they're all tapped. And so needing to play tap lands in order for your Verges to be decent really restricts your mana base, especially if you have a deck like these Naya Yuna decks that we're talking about, or heaven forbid, something that wants to play Skirmish Rhino on 3, right? Like a deck that's trying to, which I've seen cited as the evolution of the Pixie deck, which could we appreciate how dope that would be? A turn 4
I'm
Rhino, Pixie, Rhino. I want that so badly. I think that's great. And that seems like fair and honest Magic compared to some of the stuff we've seen recently. But I feel like the Shocklands are a brilliant way to help make that kind of nonsense possible. And realizing, I hear a lot of discussion about, our mana bases would be too good. And I've come to the realization that I kind of want our mana bases to be really good, but our 1 and 2 drops to kind of suck. I think that's where I want to be.
I'd rather be there myself.
Yeah.
There never should be a point in the game, I'll say, where you're in a standard where a mana base cannot, what's the way to phrase it? You never should be in a format or space, just in general, where your mana base is not conducive to try to support I'll say 80% of archetypes. Your mana base should be such that if you want to play, 65 colored lands in a deck, sure, they won't do anything, but sure. The format itself should be able to exist to allow a variety of different archetypes, and the mana base existing to support as many as it can. And I think bringing these back in does that.
Agreed. Let's go.
Yeah.
So we have Starting Town, we have Shocklands, we have Verges. I think a lot of
Town. Actually, yeah, that's great card. Mana Confluence and Standard, fantastic.
So good. Yeah. They just reprinted City of Brass again. Yeah. And I'm all for it. I think it's great. So I'm excited about that. There are a number of other Edge of Eternity's cards that have been previewed that we will definitely go into as we go. That set looks awesome. We will spend more time digging into the previews in a later episode. So please subscribe, follow on your podcast app of choice for that. Before we kind of bring this thing in for a landing, Astros, is there anything else you wanted to talk about, especially as it relates to Standard and the future of it, as it were?
Things are going to be crazy, and I'm so excited for it, because we thought Standard was diverse and then got more diverse, and now it's going to get more diverse.
Even more.
I keep saying Standard's diverse, and I'm going to have to run out of this soapbox at some point, but Standard is going to get better than it was. The mono red and the Izzet package, they kind of dominated for too long, but other decks still persisted, other decks still played, and now there's a whole new set of tier 1 decks out that we haven't even discovered yet.
Heck yeah.
And it's exciting.
We're back to a state of discovery, and that is exactly where we've needed to be for a long time.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Feels good.
It feels good. Yeah.
It does.
It does. So this is where we would normally ask a question of the week, which I definitely didn't think to prepare. But okay. I got a question for you. So I mentioned Merfolk earlier, right?
Yep.
So question of the week. Now that standard is going to be shifting, okay, this is a two-parter. Part one, what are there any creature types? Are there any typal decks that you think are going to step in and become viable? And are there any typal decks that you would like to see step in and become viable in standard?
Elves and dragons.
Nailed it.
I actually do think that elves will be in a position to be able to come out of the woodwork. Because that deck can be, that deck has a potential for a turn 4 Craterhoof, all for whatever reason that exists in the standard format. I'm still shocked.
Yep. Yeah.
But the biggest thing that deck could lose to is either a board clear or dying on turn 3. But it doesn't take long for elves to just snowball out of play. So I do actually think, in terms of typo, elves or merfolk, honestly, have a good chance to kind of spring up and showcase.
I'm inclined to 100% agree. I mean, we have Craterhoof. It's a thing. Now, we do still have a lot of early sweepers, but like Temporary Lockdown's leaving. Brotherhood's End is leaving. We have cards like Fire Magic and Pyroclasm. So like, there are answers if it becomes popular, but like they're far more narrow. And yeah, no, I dig that. I'm inclined to agree. I think that'll step up. Honestly, okay. Edge of Eternities has a creature type that we haven't seen in a very long time that I'm really hoping is good.
Oh,
they're Kavu. I want to see Kavu.
They're actually Kavu.
They're legit not messing around Kavu. Yeah.
No,
they've spoiled one.
My God, it's a Kavu pilot.
A Kavu pilot.
I didn't even see this card. Wait, it's got landfall?
They're bipedal sentient Kavu in Edge of Eternities. Yeah, we're looking at Tanuk Memorial Ensign, which is one that was spoiled at the first look. The pre-spoiler season situation. It's a 2/4 with landfall and Gruul for 3. Whenever land control enters, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and if it's the second time it triggered, you draw a card. So the card is actually
so good, though.
This card is just strong, but it looks to me like Kavu could be just in Gruul moving forward. And I love that, and I want that to be good. I'm inclined to agree that I think elves could actually be a contender all of a sudden. Now that mice aren't,
yeah.
So I'm excited about that as well. And yeah, I want to see Kavu. I want to see Kavu step up and be a thing. It would make me very happy.
I'll be honest, I didn't get to see the spoiler. I saw the legendary spacecraft and Tezzeret and that. I didn't even see this. This thing is sick. The stat line as a 2/4 is great. The landfall, which we've already got.
Yep.
That's amazing. Dealing damage. And so like if I'm Fabled Passaging, I deal 2 damage and I draw a card.
Yep.
God, I love this thing. This actually fits so nice.
Right?
I love this.
I mean, Nissa Resurgent Animus is going to be leaving right as this guy steps in. So,
actually,
that's a thing.
That's probably a good thing.
It's probably for the best. Yeah. But as far as like Jund Landfall is concerned, the Aftermath Analyst and the, was it Reckless Bargaining, the sack thing, like, and Lumra, that whole package is, a lot of that package remains. So,
yeah, because you still have Pitiless Carnage to sack, Lumra to bring back. And you still have the Iridescent Vine Lasher. So if you jam the Iridescent Vine Lasher with a Tannic here, your lands are pinging for 2.
Yeah. And you're still drawing additional cards. Like there might be something. And that right there, again, to go to our point, these brews feel possible. It doesn't It doesn't feel crazy to brainstorm this kind of stuff anymore. So Wizards, thank you for these bans. Thank you for the early Christmas gift. It means a lot.
Salute.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Awesome. So yeah, Astros, this is a freaking delight. Did you want to plug anything? Let people know where they can find you out here on the interwebs before we close it down?
Yeah. I mean, I'm over on Twitch, not so much TikTok. I'm on YouTube as well at Astro's Flame. Been a little bit slow on the content because I've been on the go with different work stuff and traveling between countries at the moment. But I am stationed and down and enjoying tacos. So streams are back this week, which is exciting. I'll be delving into Magic the Gathering with the new standard format that we've just seen released today, and Final Fantasy gameplay. So I'll be happily delving my way through Final Fantasy 6 through 10 and reliving memories I never actually played because I never play Final Fantasy. So this is exciting to me.
It blows my mind that you're going to be doing a blind playthrough on those games because, yeah, that's amazing. And I love that you're starting with 6 and going through 10. That is an era that is near and dear to my heart. So I think it's fantastic. So excellent. Well done.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And yeah, you can find me twitch.tv/hamhucks42. I'm also on YouTube, Instagram. I do post to TikTok. One thing that I'm trying to get better about is doing mobile content and like kind of spur of the moment things. So my TikTok and my Instagram I'm hoping are going to be a little bit more active than they have been in the past. I downloaded like mobile editing stuff and was doing some stuff from Vegas and was like, this is actually not like insanely difficult and kind of fun. Maybe this is that, like, you know, that thing that content creators do. Maybe I should do more of that. Yeah. I've only been doing this for like 5.5 years. Don't worry about it. It's fine. So yeah, anyway. It's been a fun learning experience. So if you want to, you know, ponder the nature of fire hydrants, that's a thing that you can do on my TikTok now. So hooray. I'm not kidding. That is the thing I posted to TikTok. Feel free to go check it out. TikTok, hamhucks42 over on that platform. All right.
I have so many questions.
Well, go to TikTok. You'll get them answered. All right. And with that, everybody, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. We will catch you on the next one. You're freaking amazing. Take it easy, everybody. Later.